This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.
All right, welcome back to the Goals.com podcast, where we dive deep into what drives sales performance at the highest levels. Today, we're joined by someone who truly lives and breathes sales, Joe English, a partner at 360 Consulting, where he helps organizations build winning sales programs from the ground up as part of the sales acceleration community. Joe's dedicated to helping teams sell smarter, not harder. Joe's career has been all about helping companies turn potential into performance. And today, we're going to unpack what that really takes. From building a sales culture to coaching effective leaders and empowering teams to hitting their goals. Joe, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Andrew. It's great to be here.
You built your career around helping companies grow their sales from the ground up. When you first walk into a struggling sales organization, what's the first thing you look for?
Well, we are firm believers here within the 360 group that there's 4 foundational pillars to any great sales system, what we like to refer to as the sales engine. And that's go-to-market, people or organization, process, and execution. And so we're kind of looking through that lens to see what's there and what's not, what could be improved. So quite frankly, it really is about a system. And so we're trying to determine, is there a system or even the bones of one, right? If we talk about home improvement, right? Does it have good bones, and where can we improve on that? Because sometimes it is literally build from the ground up, and sometimes it's fine tune it, right? Because they may have some really good stuff.
You often say that salespeople and leaders aren't born, they're made. What does that process of making a great salesperson actually look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I use kind of that phraseology, not just in my professional life, but in my personal life as well. I've had the good fortune to be around a lot of great leaders. Like many of us who've had W-2 jobs, I've had the misfortune of being around a lot of people who were not great leaders. In fact, I actually just read an article last week. Somebody was talking about people leave because of culture. And I would tell you that's absolutely wrong. I think culture's a part of it, but people leave because of their boss, right? People stay because of their boss and leave because of their boss. So leadership matters, because you could have an awesome culture and a terrible boss, probably going to leave. You could have a great boss and a terrible culture, but you may stay because of that mentorship. So I like to talk about things like it's those characteristics and traits that can make good leaders, but you don't necessarily inherently know how to lead. You just have characteristics that would probably lend to good leadership. And so for me, it's no different than hiring for anything else, right? An engineer, an accountant, an HR specialist, whatever it is. There's an onboarding process, and then there's an accountability process. And that's kind of how you build leaders. You have to onboard them and teach them, here are the things that need to happen in this role versus the role that you were in. You have to teach people how to manage and then how to lead. So
I love that.
that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense. What do you believe most companies get wrong about sales development or sales training?
I would tell you it's one simple thing. It's context around their business. So there are some amazing training programs. I've had the good fortune to go through a lot of really great training in my corporate life. I facilitate some, I think, really great training now with clients, but I don't do a lot of straight up training. It's more coaching in our world, because we don't want to compete with some of our referral partners and people that are out there that do awesome training, like say a Sandler as an example. They have a great training platform. What it lacks is context around the business. So what we focus on most of the time is getting the system built, getting that sales engine built so that it's high performance and ready to go win the revenue race, right? But then you want to train and coach to that system in the context of the business, right? Not just generically. Like a lot of times when we do role plays, it's generic. I think what's missing is the context of the actual type of deal that a business gets, gets into and the real customers that they're chasing. So I think
Yeah,
context
got it.
is what is missing a lot of times in training.
Sort of customizing the templated approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. From your experience, what's the biggest difference between an average salesperson and a top performer?
This is a great question. I understand because I was never like a top student when I was younger. I figured it out as I got older, and especially in my professional life. Well, it turned out that I was dyslexic, which I found out when I was almost 20. So all of a sudden, I could read better. So that helped me in school. And then when I was 45, because of a child, I found out that I'm ADD. So, okay, all that being said, you learn, right? And one of the things that I learned as a kid was bell-shaped curves, right? So in life, bell-shaped curves are real. You've got people on either side and then the majority in the middle. And that's just math. It's just the way it works. But what you're trying to do is get C players to be B players, B players to be A players, right? Here's what I would tell you makes the difference in those people that are on the proper side of the bell curve is consistency paired with desire. And that consistency is the same kind of thing that as a coach you look for, right? You're looking for somebody who's coachable, not the star player who thinks they're great and doesn't want to be coached because now they're a problem child, right? So that consistency is important. Just, doing it right all the time. And the desire for me is whether you are driven to want to win or afraid to lose, right? So it's that hatred of losing may be just as powerful as the desire to be a winner, right? So, but if you can pair those two, consistency and desire, that's where you get the A players.
Consistency and desire. I love that. You emphasize coaching and empowerment as core pillars in your work. How do you balance accountability with encouragement in a sales team?
This is a tough one. I think you have to be really intentional in your conversations with people and you need to be thoughtful around what you're trying to do. So I'm a big believer in KPIs. As Chris, one of my partners, likes to say, figures never lie, but liars figure. So KPIs are important, but they can always kind of be manipulated a little bit. So we're probably more about end results than the leading KPIs are vastly superior to lagging KPIs, but you want to make sure they're not being systems not being gamed, right? But you have to hold people accountable to those metrics, whatever they are in your business. But you want to be thoughtful and intentional about encouraging people and not writing people, right? So you have to hold them accountable to meeting expectations. So there was a study published by Harvard Business Review, not conducted by Harvard, but published by them back in the 80s when I was in business school. And it was talking about sales specifically. It was three large companies that did a study, picked three criteria. Is it personality, which we all think of in sales, right? Is it compensation, which coin operated machines we are, right? So is it compensation or is it expectations and clarity? What turns out 300% greater, it's clarity of task than anything. So if you outline clear expectations and you have a process, right? You have that good go to market, you know what your people organization looks like and how to coach, develop, train, all that good stuff, compensate. And then you have a defined process. The execution component is, are we doing all the things we outline that we need to do to be successful? And if there's clear expectations, the accountability piece becomes way easier. And then the conversation is way easier because, well, everybody knows what we're supposed to do. And if we're not doing it, the conversation is, okay, where are we missing and how can we do better? So it is encouraging, but it's helpful as well with the accountability in there. It just, it tends to go better. So I've had really good luck with those conversations and had, they've not needed to be, you know, ill-spirited or mean or any of that stuff. People just kind of always know where they are.
Many business owners double as sales managers. How do you help them transition from doing sales to leading sales?
This is, the biggest dilemma, right? The owner's dilemma is owner dependency in the business. So typically, most small to mid-sized businesses are owner operator led businesses, and they are the rainmaker because it's their baby. They're passionate about it. But to me, there's four fundamental, could be more complex than this, but four fundamental elements of the stages of life of a business. You got to start the business, you got to build it, you got to grow it, and then you may scale it, right? So, well, growth and scale are really difficult if you are the business, right? You may have other people that work for you, but if everything comes through you, and so you simply can't grow and scale the way you want to. And it's helping them understand that you must find time to work on the business versus in the business because you are your own limiting factor at that point. And that's not always the funnest conversation for a successful business owner, but it's necessary.
Yeah, I totally agree. Can you share a story of a time when coaching truly transformed a salesperson or a team's results?
Sure. Yeah. A few years back, I use this example a bit. So that's why it's top of mind for me. We had a trades organization, mid-sized trades organization, about probably 65 million, 70 million at the time. And good company, good brand, had gone through some struggles with COVID and other stuff, right? So we got in there, did our phase one, phase two, figured out what was going on, had a scope to build a new sales engine for them. And it was really focused on two sides to their business. They have a service business and then they had a construction where they were a subcontractor to larger general contractors doing construction jobs as a trades company. So net, we kind of had two systems that we built because they're different problems we're solving. The construction side didn't lean in as hard as the service side leaned into the process, which is vastly important to the success of our work actually delivering results. So pretty cool in that it took us a little longer than we thought. It was about a 6 to 7 month process to get everything built out right. And they didn't feel like they had anybody to necessarily run the team the way they wanted to. So we stuck around, kind of did a phase three to help them sort of coach through how to implement it properly, run their meetings, look at their KPIs, get all their reporting right, and really drive results. And within the first 6 months of running their new sales engine, they not only grew the top line revenue by, I think it was 37%. Uh, it
Wow.
wasn't like we didn't double the business thing, but it was pretty significant growth. But more importantly, we hit their corporate profit between both divisions of the company within 6 months. And that, quite frankly, included a loss from the other side of the business that didn't really lean in. They were struggling with overhead and some other things that cut into their margins significantly. But the service business just absolutely rocked it. They were selling at much higher margins, more revenue, but much higher margins because they were selling to the right customers. It was a home run success story. And quite frankly, the client has referred quite a few other clients to us since then. So it's always top of mind because it's a good story in that it's important that the customer leans into the process of getting better, right?
100% agree. I love that. Through 360 consulting and sales acceleration, you've helped organizations build entire sales engines. What's one process every growing company must have?
This is a common misnomer for sales. People just think it's, you got to hire these type A, get out there, super friendly, could talk to a brick wall, go sell something. That's not how it works. It is a system and a process, just like accounting, just like engineering, finance, any other, business function inside the organization. And I'll go back to the very first question you asked. What's the first thing we look for? Do they have a system? Which includes these four foundational pillars, that go-to-market strategy. Now, that's not a process per se, but without that strategy, you can't execute the process. So then from there, you have to have the people component, then the sales process, which for us is kind of, it's split into three funnels from our perspective. It's not just one sales funnel, right? We can all go Google and see the sales funnel, and it's X number of stages and things you have to do inside. To us, top of funnel is its own funnel, right? So there's a marketing effort there to generate leads to prospects to opportunities. Once you actually have a deal, now it goes into your traditional sales cycle funnel. And whatever your stages and steps are to win a piece of business. But then once you've landed that client, now how do you expand that relationship over time, especially based on your business? How do you do repeat business, recurring revenue, reoccurring revenue, whatever that looks like? There's an account management funnel that now needs to be considered. And so having that process well defined with the stages and the steps that are necessary to win and expand business is critically important. And then the last piece of it is execution. How do you take those other three pillars and religiously flywheel that thing and execute, with vim and vigor, and make sure you have a profitable, predictable result every month, as to what the business is going to do.
How do you approach diagnosing sales problems? What's your method for finding the real issues behind lagging numbers?
So we have a saying, stop guessing. We need to know. And the only way you're ever going to know something is you have to ask a lot of questions. So, as an example, we'll dig into clients' pipelines, right? Early on, as part of our just kind of understanding what does the team do? And then what do they individually do? And how are they getting to where they are? And so we ask them, well, hey, talk to me about this deal, right? And they're like, and I'm like, so it's stuck. Where's it stuck? Where in your process is it stuck? Why is it stuck there? And then, you start to hear excuses. And I just use that term, but there's some reason why it's stuck. And that's like anything. The whole business is that way. Okay, why don't we have leads? So it's just it's a discovery process. It's asking a lot of really good, insightful questions based on almost 40 years of experience just for myself, but amongst the team, 300 years of experience of seeing these problems over and over and being able to ask insightful questions. So it really is discovery.
What's your take on the role of technology and automation in sales today? Are we at risk of losing the human touch?
I know there's a lot of fear about that, especially with AI, but AI is just one component of the tech stack, right? I would say that in B2C, there's probably more risk because in the e-commerce world, that tech stack, even now, social platforms have allowed organizations to just be able to transact with zero human interaction, right? I don't know if that's true in the B2B space, which is where we focus, because you're solving more complex business problems. That qualification of, is it even a good fit client? And then that discovery process of what is the actual problem that needs to be solved, that requires some level of engagement beyond strictly technology platforms talking to one another. So I don't see it as much in the B2B space. Technology is absolutely part of the process. Sometimes the engagement from human to human happens later in the process than it used to because of all the technology. I mean, a prime example, when I was a youngster starting out, well, we went to trade shows and conferences, right? Because that's where you learned about what was new. Well, with the internet, we don't have to do that so much anymore. Shows and conferences have become something different in today's world, right? So technology enables us, but I still think there's a place because people do business with people from a B2B perspective. So I'm not as afraid as some folks are, but I also live in the B2B world.
Yeah, no, I agree with your position on it. Many small and mid-sized companies hesitate to invest in sales consulting. What do you say to convince them it's worth it?
This is a tricky question. So I get scoffed at occasionally because people say, well, how do you sell? And I'm like, well, we don't sell. We teach people how to, and we build a system and we will teach them how to sell. We don't sell because we're predominantly a referral based business. And so our clients kind of opt in and ask for the help. They're like, hey, you guys are really, you seem to have a pretty good handle on that. Can you help us figure this out? Yes, we can do that. the challenge for us is if we sell somebody, which we have a high degree of confidence, we could sell somebody on our services. But if for any reason it doesn't go well, our fault, their fault, nobody's fault, that hurts our reputation. And since we're referral based, we can't afford that, right? It's a currency that only 360 gets to spend, our reputation. But what we do like to do is help them understand that, look, if you do nothing, right? If you don't ask for help and get help to improve your situation, what's next, right? What's the result going to be then? And typically they've engaged in a conversation with us for some reason. Things aren't going as well as they could be, right? So that's really all we try to do is help them remember that what got you here won't get you there. I mean, there's a book, but at the end of the day, we all get to a certain point, and then even the best athletes in the world still have coaches to help them get even better, right?
You've worn a lot of hats: consultant, coach, partner, and founder. How have these roles shaped your view of leadership?
Okay, so that's a good one. Anyone can be a leader. Anyone can be a leader. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. We tend to, human nature, think of, well, the person in charge is the leader, and there's truth in that. But if you are actually watching and paying attention to what's going on anywhere in life or inside of an organization, you'll see behaviors of leadership everywhere. So a prime example is the person who goes into 7-Eleven. Somebody knocks something off the shelf and they go down to pick it up and put it back. Well, that's leadership. That's showing the way, right? And so in my life and career, I've seen a lot of that. And fortunately for my parents, they kind of instilled that in me at an early age, that's leadership, right? You could be the person who cleans and be a leader. And so that's just how I think of it contextually versus being the person in charge, right? You're the de facto leader of the organization, but hopefully you're showcasing those traits that are pick up somebody else's mess and show everybody else that that's the way, right? That's the best way to do it.
What's one sales lesson that's stuck with you throughout your entire career? Something that still guides how you work today?
Yeah, the Hawthorne effect was the result of a study done many, many years ago in an industrial setting. People can Google it and look it up. But the learning that I got out of that, which I found to be true based on it was an aha moment to think back to my whole life, competing in sports, competing in sales. Not everybody wants to win, but nobody wants to suck. So, I mean, nobody wants to be a loser, right? That you don't want to lose. Like last place is terrible, right? Nobody wants to be in last place. Not everybody has that burning desire to win whatever the contest is, to get first chair, in the orchestra, whatever the competition is. So it's finding out how do you help people win every day at whatever it is they're doing. That's kind of what drives me. I like helping people. And so figuring out what is their thing that they can win at. And there's a way to win every day. It's not necessarily getting an order, closing a big deal. It's what are the little things that got you there? That's how you win every day. But yeah, understanding that not everybody is driven to win. Some are driven to not fail. Some just kind of want to go through in that bell curve. Some are C players. They're at the top of the bell, and you just got to figure out how can you maybe slide them a little bit further over into the B category.
So I'm curious. So the Hawthorne effect. So what is it? It's
So I'll
winning the little
summarize it.
steps throughout the day.
Yeah, I'll summarize it really quick. It was basically a time and motion study done. I forget the company. It was a large industrial company. And so they sent these people out, and this is like back in the 20s, I think, to observe these factory workers, right? And they're out there with their white lab coats on and their clipboards, and they're making notes. They're doing a time and motion, like, hey, here's what everybody's doing. And they're trying to figure out how to get more efficiency. So here's what they found out. If you stand around in a white lab coat with a clipboard, you take notes and you're observing, people work harder. So that is the Hawthorne effect. It was the Hawthorne facility of, whomever, I can't remember the company, but the idea is like a scorecard, a scorecard, a dashboard. If you put metrics up, if people know they're being measured, they tend to work harder. So which is why in sales, we're huge fans of the scorecard and the dashboard. And in business, KPIs are important, right? How are we doing? And especially if you can produce that information quickly, as an example, in real time. So people know this is how we're doing. So the prime example is the scoreboard for the football game. It's the fourth quarter, 2-minute drill. We're down by a field goal. Who's going to make a play, right? We know exactly where we are. And to get the result, somebody's got to go make something happen.
I'd say the Hawthorne effect is in full effect today. That's for sure. All right. Finally, if you could give one piece of advice to a sales rep or sales leader listening right now who feels stuck, what would it be?
So I'm going to make this a broader statement. Certainly for sales people, sales leadership, executive leadership, but it's true for anybody, anywhere. Ask for help. It seems simple, right? But what we have to remember is it goes against human nature to admit that we don't know something, right? Especially for guys, right? Girls like to make fun of us all the time, for not asking for directions or, whatever that might be. But asking for help to solve a problem is one of the most courageous things someone can do. Now, I'm not saying ask for help like immediately, right? Try to solve your problem. But for me, when I had people come to me in my corporate life and say, "Hey, Joe, can you help me with this?" My first question is, okay, so what have you done so far? And if they're like, "Well, I just knew you'd know the answer, so I came to you," I said, "Tell you what, why don't you go read our sales playbook and figure this out yourself?" So that's a coaching moment for me. But if they said, "Well, I went to the playbook and then I went to the shared drive and I looked here and I tried this and it didn't work." Okay. So you tried to solve your problem and now you're stuck. I can help with that, right? And it may be a quick, but I want to understand, did they try to solve? So try to solve your problem, but don't get to the point where now you're frustrated and you've lost all this time, because now we have opportunity cost around solving that problem. But when people are stuck, on a deal, on a relationship, a decision around an investment for the business, whatever that is, ask for help, right? People are generally willing to help, right? So seek out some expertise and go get help.
Yep. The smartest and most successful people I know are the ones who are never afraid to ask for help. So true. Joe, this has been such a powerful conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights and experience with us. For anyone listening who wants to learn more about Joe's work, check out 360 Consulting. We'll leave links to in the show notes. And for our listeners, if you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your sales team. We've got more great conversations ahead with leaders who are redefining what it means to win in sales today. Until next time, stay focused, stay motivated, and keep turning your goals into wins right here on the Goals.com podcast. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Andrew.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.